On the schools program today, we have the president of Defiance College, Rashan Mankey, with me. And Rashan, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Jim. Thanks for having me again. Always enjoy our conversations.
You know, this is a very unique way for you and I to talk. I mean, we've talked in person, we've talked over the phone, and now we get to Zoom one another. So we've covered all bases.
Absolutely. It's a changing world for sure.
I bet you guys in the last couple of weeks and months have really put the Zoom platform to work at Defiance College.
We've used both Zoom and Google Meets for our meetings. Yes, we actually had our board meeting virtually in the middle of May.
It's hard to imagine, but it works pretty well. I mean, will it change the way that you guys meet in the future, do you think?
I definitely think that it will inform some ways that we can be more effective and more efficient. And I think right now it's working really well because we know the people around the table and in the meetings, the proverbial table, I guess I should say. I think as new people enter and you don't have a sense for who they are and what their personalities like, it makes the only format as Zoom a little more difficult. You and I are both people, so it's better when we can meet and interact in a face-to-face. But there are some things that this will just be indicated that we can do differently and save some time and money.
Yeah, well, it will be interesting. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
Now, Defiance College has made the announcement now you're going to bring students back in the fall.
Yes, we are, face-to-face with appropriate measures for physical distancing. And when we've chosen to say physical as opposed to social, we still want our students to be able to be social. It just looks a little differently in this environment where we're trying to contain the virus.
So how would you change? You've got a decent sized campus footprint there. So when they're outside and walking, obviously distancing will not be a problem. But once you bring them into classroom settings and cafeteria settings, how do those things change?
Well, our faculty was very creative about how to do this. And we just told our students recently and their parents that we will go to a 4-day class week. So classes will occur on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Wednesday will be a day where students could engage certainly in studying, but in internships, maybe student teaching, observations, those sorts of things, because we know other businesses will be needing to do the same thing that we are. Classes will go a little longer in the evening on those 4 days, but it gives us some flexibility to split a class, to have half in the classroom and half online, and then split it back the opposite day when class. It gives faculty just a lot of flexibility to engage in different kinds of experiential activities and classroom discussions, and also allows us to maintain social distancing in the classroom to keep people safe and keep our faculty and staff safe.
I know you have freshman dormitories. How does that work?
We are changing how we're housing people by affinity groups. So we wouldn't normally house the women's soccer team on the same floor in the same wing. This year we will, because they will be most likely to be together for soccer games, etc. And trying to get a handle on that, we will have to do more. We'll have to do temperature testing, and we have procedures that we are working out. We're mostly worked out for how that looks. We'll engage socially by maybe doing some things like watching movies, streaming movies, as opposed to going to a theater and watching a movie together. So we're working through ideas that can keep our students engaged but safe. So more outdoor activities, maybe things that we can do outside that we wouldn't normally do or we wouldn't do as many of. And of course, that's always weather dependent. We have to have options. But yes, we have the appropriate measures. We have signage being made. We're securing the appropriate personal protective equipment that everybody's trying to secure. So that's always a challenge right now.
Oh, I bet it is. To say that this is a fluid issue, I would think would be an understatement.
It would be. And we do have some resources. The state, we watch the governor's updates when he does them, and they have worked with us to be able to provide us some sources where we can secure. And we're trying to do locally as much as we can. we're trying to secure those supplies locally as much as we can.
That's wonderful. Now, everybody, I think, on their mind right now, college athletics is a very big question mark right at this point.
Right.
So what can we learn from President Mankey here about D3 football and other fall athletic programs?
Well, right now, we've been working very closely, as you can imagine, with our conference, the Heartland Collegiate Athletic Conference. The ADs and the presidents have had many meetings, and the plan right now is to have fall come back. There's still details about that to be worked out, but our ADs are engaging. And again, the idea is to keep everybody safe. But the plan right now is to go forward with fall sports with probably some alterations that will keep students safe, different kinds of travel arrangements and those sorts of things that we have not yet worked out completely. We are working them out, and our students know that that is the plan, to come back and engage and just try to keep people as safe as we can. Thus the affinity groups. So we have to take temperatures. We have to do all those kinds of things. And I know some of the things that are on the AD's mind. I'm not ready to say what they are until we finalize them as a conference. And as we know, as we went into this in spring semester, we had plans. We talked about plans our conference did, and then other conferences made decisions, and it kind of ended up that everybody canceled their season. But it was a fluid process, just like this is a fluid process coming back in. As long as containment continues, we plan to have fall sports start on time in the fall.
Well, that would be good. And a full season, not a shortened season at all for any of the programs?
Under discussion is non-conference games, but no shortened season in terms of our conference, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that will be interesting. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting situation. Hopefully everybody can stay healthy between now and 1st of September.
I hope so. We've seen some, I guess, spikes, partly due to testing, but then partly, I think, due to containment issues and not following some of the practices that are recommended. So you can imagine we follow those data pretty regularly just to see what's happening. And from a regional perspective, this area hasn't been too hard hit. We have some cases, and unfortunately we've had some deaths, but in terms of some of the numbers we've seen coming out of major metropolitan areas, our numbers are very reasonable, and our hospitals are able to handle the cases that they need to handle. So that's good news for people coming to our region from another region where maybe that's not been the case.
Yeah, and obviously that second part is the potential problem, because they're coming in from areas that are not Northwest Ohio.
That's right. That's right.
Now, I would hope that we have enough data now that we can make some very solid decisions as we head into the fall, because I know the initial reaction was we are going to be as cautious as we possibly can. But I think we have learned some things, have we not? In conversations that you've had with some of the boards and some of the folks that you've had to deal with, is there a different perspective now than there was, Rashan, back at the very beginning?
Maybe. I mean, I think some of the data, being outside is better than being in a contained room. So the biggest risk is in a contained space, like an airplane or a small room where there are too many people. We're still taking the stance right now about as much safety protection as we can. And we're talking about, what does that mean? If you're 6 feet apart in a classroom, can we all take our face coverings off? Those kinds of things. And I think we are learning some things about the spread, and we adjust as we come forward. But our first priority is everybody's safety.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Rashan Mankey is my guest right now. She's the president of Defiance College. I need to step away and pay a couple of bills, Rashan. And when we come back, I want to talk about a brand new program that is going on that involves not only the college, but some local manufacturing and a couple of hot issues that are in the national headlines every day. You've got the education program here on the Q 96.5 FM. Rashan Mankey, the president of Defiance College, with me here via Zoom today for the education program. And Rashan, we basically teased it a little bit as we left, but there is a new initiative on the college campus right now, and it sounds like an exciting one.
It's very exciting, Jim. We had planned a big splash rollout in the spring, and obviously COVID-19 entered and we could not do that. So we've done what I call a crescendo launch, which is, increasing the volume a little bit. Well, we're very excited about what we're calling Jacket Journey. And it has a tagline, we put the higher, H-I-R-E, in higher education. It is a career readiness program that uses what we already do. We educate students in the skills that employers want. They get the skills for their discipline, their major. They also get the soft skills like communication, ethical judgment, decision-making, teamwork, critical thinking, applying knowledge they learned in the classroom to the real world setting. When I got here, I started meeting with area business owners and community leaders and heard often that we had this disconnect. And we worked on this and put it to the entire campus last year to say, this is how we're thinking about career readiness and the kind of education we give, which we call liberal arts based. Liberal arts based on the Greek philosophy, not on a political sort of, of bent there. And our faculties and staff each had an opportunity to weigh in about ideas that they would see to make this happen, the problems that exist in terms of the problem in the communities that we need to address and in the workplace that we need to address, and then put together a comprehensive program for our students. So what makes it unique are two things. One, it is going to be required for students entering this fall, but that doesn't leave out current students. Current students could opt into this program. And the other thing that is unique about it is we have faculty who will be directly interfacing with business owners or in the workplace. So employees of companies in the department where that faculty member has an area of expertise. So those are two unique things. What we put together is something that addresses a problem that, one, employers weren't thinking that our students were exposed to the skills that they needed. What we discovered is our students aren't able to necessarily articulate those skills to their employers. We can fix that. Employers believe we're not teaching those skills because of that articulation issue. And then we want to make sure that students take advantage of what we're already doing. So many of the things that our employers want or that they need to know about entering the workplace in particular, as opposed to graduate school, are things that we teach on campus in workshops, but they aren't necessarily required. So that's one of the things that we wanted to do. And what happens in this program is basically we have created an institute. So we've created an institute for career readiness and lifelong learning. And if you know who Dean Jeremy Taylor is, he will be our dean of that institute. We're very excited about his leadership. He's not only a detail person, but he's very, very creative. Two, we want to have an annual employee summit so that we bring employers to campus to meet with faculty members and talk about the issues that are current in our workforce. We want to have students have incentives. So we've put together a plan that we're calling Jacket Points, where when they go to a session, they have points that incentivize them to get something. Maybe it's a new backpack or books for next semester, those sorts of things. We will have Jacket Days. Jacket Days are 3 days in January that are required by students. They'll be fun, but they'll also be packed full of information about career readiness. So how to conduct an interview, what to wear to an interview. Right now, we don't know if the handshake will ever return, but those are one of the things that we always used to want to teach students is how to shake somebody's how to make your resume relevant, but also how to have the conversations with employers. An interesting example and an easy example might be an employer saying, "What did you learn in this business course?" "Well, I learned how to use Excel." Well, that's not a good answer to help the employer understand what it is that the student learned about how to help the business use this software. So how that student could analyze data, make a recommendation, how that written report needs to look, to go to a supervisor or the CEO even to make a recommendation from the data that had been analyzed using the tool Excel, not just learning what it is. So that kind of thing is what will happen in the Jacket Days. And then finally, we hope to have some faculty immersion experiences where faculty could spend 2 to 4 weeks in a business to understand. Let's say an employer wants some help with intergenerational communication. And this is a psychology professor who is going to this work site. How can that psychology professor understand in the workplace what kinds of issues a particular employer is having, and then how can he or she come back to campus and help students to understand that in a way that makes them a better employer for the 21st century.
Interesting. Yeah, an interesting program. And I think an awful lot of the listeners and viewers that we'll have with this understand we have 4 county up here that deals with vocational type training. Okay. Right. But on a collegiate level, how do you all of a sudden assimilate with the manufacturers around here? And there are several avenues, as you just pointed out, where the DC and the area manufacturers fit hand in glove.
Right. And, you know, we won't ever be teaching welding because Northwest State and other entities are well suited to do those sorts of things. That's part of their mission. Part of our mission is educating students broadly, but we can help them understand how those things translate into the larger world. And every manufacturer needs accountants. They need human resources people, all kinds of managers. So there are all kinds of ways that the skills that we teach and how we teach them can translate into good first professional positions and the graduates who will fill those positions. And by the way, this year, our placement rate, so students who are employed in first professional position or in graduate school, and we count it from the class of 2019, 6 to 9 months out. We've been trying to grow that placement rate. Last year it was 93%. This year it's 96.8%. So 96.8% of our students who graduated in 2019 have a first professional position or have been accepted to graduate school in the fall.
Wow, pretty impressive.
It is impressive. I'm very pleased. And Sally Bissell heads our Office of Career Services. She's done an excellent job of working with employers and with our students to prepare them to be ready to go and to get that first position.
Sally's a very good spokesperson for the college. Wonderful. Yeah.
She's a graduate as well as a great employee.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, you mentioned it, so let's bring it up because all you hear nowadays in the world is this liberal bend that we have on our colleges and higher institutions of learning. You are a liberal college, but that doesn't mean that somebody that goes to DC is going to come out as a devout liberal thinking person.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say we're a liberal college, but we're liberal arts based, Jim. And I
left the arts out. My bad there, Sam.
and that really goes back to ancient thinking about how people think and argue and philosophically work through an argument. It isn't about a political position. Liberal arts are things like philosophy and religion and English and the kinds of courses that students at 4-year private institutions basically take as part of their general education courses. And then they declare a major and they graduate with a major. Maybe they graduate with 2 majors or a major and a minor. But the piece about that is what we're teaching is everything. We're also teaching students how to think, not what to think. That is a huge difference. How to think, not what to think. So if I have facts, I have opinions, how do I put this together to understand what it is that I believe? And how do I do that? So we give students papers to write, presentations to make. Maybe they have to take even the opposite side in a in-class debate from a position that they personally hold. Well, that helps you to think about, oh, well, how would I think about this from this side of the argument? And I think from a perspective of being a good citizen and a good community leader, one of the things that a liberal arts-based institution does is help that thinking, help to think about what is ethical, what is good judgment, what supports humanity, what supports our citizens as a whole, not just one piece, but what supports us as a whole, and how can we learn how to sort through facts and opinions to come to a professional and a personal place. That's what liberal arts-based institutions do, not what to think, how to think.
You know, I think that's so critical nowadays because, you know, you hear all the time, fake news, fake news, fake news, and fake news comes from all different sources on all different levels every day of a person's life. And you have to be able to think your way through what reality really is oftentimes.
Well, yes, and it also requires of us to be good thinkers, to read both ends of the spectrum, what's in the middle of the spectrum, and sort through what really is fact-based and what is someone's opinion. There is a difference.
Most definitely. I agree 100%. How's that? I'm an old communications major from Ohio University, so I'm really bad about calling out sources for
absolutely. And a great school for that major, by the way.
Yes, it was. And it was a fun school to go to, and we'll leave it at that. Hey, let's talk about one other thing because, and it hits home to me because the very first news story I was involved with in 1978 in Alabama was the biggest Ku Klux Klan rally in the South since the 60s. And I was very fortunate to be right in the middle of the whole proceedings and got to see every perspective and every angle and meet all the participants and get to know all the participants. And now I thought over the course of the last 50 years that maybe race relations have gotten better. And now all of a sudden it seems to be the headline again. Your college campus is made up of about 50% minority students. So it has to be something that you think about at DC.
Absolutely. And we have faculty and staff members of color. In recent updates I've done to campus, I've tried to address this issue because it is an important issue for us. And it breaks my heart from a national perspective because we aren't working with equity for all. And part of it is about our relationships with different races, religion, ethnic groups. And in this case, our Black citizens. And there's so much richness in our diversity, and trying to find that and looking at similarities to understand difference is very important. But that's not all of it. And what we're dealing with here, and what has really risen to the top here, is systemic racism and how that is built into some of our laws, some of our practices, some of the ways we're dealing with things behind the scenes and not holding folks accountable for treating everybody with, every situation is different. but treating everybody with an equitability that is appropriate to the situation. And, you know, we had the death of George Floyd. Then this weekend we had another death. I just read some other unfortunate news, and it is just very disturbing. So the question that I pose to our campus is, what can Defiance College do to support our students, to help them feel safe, to support our faculty and staff, to have difficult conversations, to make sure that we're having the conversations in our community and with our community leaders. And that may translate to a bigger conversation, because we have folks participating in our local conversations. Already, we've reached out to our students, all of our students, and have had several students participate in some conversations. And I'm not saying this to do anything, but we need to know what's happening in order to create an action plan, and then put that action plan to work for our campus and for our community. And that's where we're starting. We're addressing it head on, acknowledging that this is a race issue and that it isn't appropriate. And we will start here and continue to listen, and we will have an action plan and continue to work that action plan. But to just build the relationships and listen to whoever has something to say to us doesn't do enough. We must take some action to move that forward, to make sure that those issues are addressed, whether they're on our campus or in our community.
When do you expect to have the final decisions there and take that action?
We will start fall semester with it, so it'll be developed over the summer.
Yeah, very good. Rashan Mankey, the president of Defiance College, thank you as always for your time.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure, Jim, and we always get into some interesting issues, and I love the way you ask questions. So thank you for having me once again.
I have a couple of your faculty members and maybe coaching staff that I have a program in mind for, so we'll discuss that later. How's that?
Okay, we can do that. Thank you very much.
Rashan Mankey, our guest today, as we close out our education program today on a Tuesday on the Q 96.5 FM. Back to classic hits.